Lesson 4.1, What is Nutrition Science? The goals of this lesson are to shift students' thinking to the nature of science and to begin to familiarize students with designing a study. At the end of this lesson, students should be able to explain the role of asking questions in guiding science, form a scientific question, and explain where questioning fits into the scientific method. We'll achieve these goals by having students develop several questions about nutrition or metabolic diseases. To prepare for this lesson, you will need to review the scientific method. You can review this content in the background reading provided for you in the teacher primer, the teacher manual, and the student workbook. The teacher primer provides in-depth knowledge about the scientific content presented in this lesson. The teacher manual provides a minute-by-minute explanation of the lesson structure, including instructions on how to manage the discussion and the activity. The student workbook provides additional explanations for the students. You will need to print out one activity worksheet and one homework worksheet per student. The key point of this lesson's do now is to engage students in the act of asking questions. We'll get there by having a brief Socratic discussion with the students and by watching a video clip. The do now opens with some questions for students about questions in science. Students are probably familiar with the scientific method from other classes and should see that asking a good scientific question is key to designing a study. Before moving on to the activity, watch the video on slide 4 about a neuroscientist that teaches a course about why ignorance is a cornerstone to scientific research. Caution, you will want to be sure that the video that is embedded in the PowerPoint slide will play before you go to your class. The key point of this lesson's activity is that there are many types of questions, but ones that we are interested in science are those that are unknown to everyone. We'll get there by having students brainstorm questions that they may have about nutrition or metabolic diseases. Students should use the activity worksheet as a guide for asking these questions. The worksheet provides some framework for their questioning, which makes it easier than trying to think of questions from scratch. Go over the types of questions on the worksheet with the students before giving them time to do their own brainstorming. The key points of this lesson's discussion are that there are two types of studies: observational and interventional. Observational studies can only show correlation, whereas interventional can show causation or correlation. Note that this is a very important point that should be emphasized. And meta-analyses are the gold standard when it comes to giving nutrition recommendations. We'll get there by having a Socratic discussion with the students. The concepts presented in this discussion will be the primary focus of Lesson 4.2. This just gives students an overview, so don't worry about spending too much time here. The key point of the lesson's wrap-up is that not all questions make good scientific questions. A good scientific question is one that we can study to get closer to the answer. We'll get there by having a short discussion with the students. By the end of this lesson, students should answer the question, how do you recognize a good scientific question? The key point of the lesson's homework is that good scientific questions can be made for every unit of the metabolic disease module. We'll get there by having students complete a worksheet. The homework worksheet asks students to develop questions for the 3 units of the metabolic disease module that they have completed. Unit 1, what's in your food? Unit 2, how does my body use food? And Unit 3, what is metabolic disease? If you didn't use all of the metabolic disease unit, you can reframe the exercise so that students develop questions for another portion of your class. This lesson marks a change in the metabolic disease curriculum where we will begin to spend more time thinking about and discussing the nature of science. This can make some students who are used to thinking about science as a set of facts uncomfortable. We will see several instances where there are no answers to our questions and no facts to memorize. It is hard to develop questions on the spot, so it's a good idea to have some prompts for the students ready in the activity. At the end of this lesson, students should be able to explain the role of asking questions in guiding science, form a scientific question, and explain where questioning fits into the scientific method. We will continue to talk about scientific studies in Lesson 4.2 and begin to analyze studies in real research in Lesson 4.3. Don't forget that if you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, you can let us know. You can contact any of the CTSE team members and we will be happy to help.